What is the banjo? The banjo as we know it today is a 5 steel-stringed instrument with its chanterelle string on the thumb side attached halfway up the neck. It has a drum head as its resonator, a detached wooden bridge that holds up strings, and a guitar-style fretboard. Where did this instrument come from? Why is it played the way it is today? In other words, what is the history of the banjo and its playing styles? It all starts back in Africa, more specifically Senegambia, with an instrument called the akonting. The akonting consists of a gourd with an animal hide stretched across the top, a pretty high wooden bridge that suspends usually 3 gut strings. The strings are attached along the neck, with the highest string being on the thumb side, just like the banjo. Above is a man playing the akonting. As you can see, the akonting is played with the downstroke of the first finger and a pluck up with the thumb. The Jola people of Senegambia call the technique o-tek, which means to strike. It is very similar to the clawhammer style of banjo. Now how did that turn into the banjo? Well, the answer is a little more grim than you might like to think. It is all because of the transatlantic slave trade. Now, the people being traded as slaves couldn't bring instruments along with them onto boats, for example, but they could bring their memory and the concept of such an instrument. So that is what they did. According to Bill Evans, early accounts of slaves playing gourd banjos go back to the 1500s. Gourd banjos were what happened when the idea of the akonting clashed with the European-style fretboard, basically becoming the son of the akonting. The first account of a white banjo player is much later than the 1500s, though. Along early frontiers in the Appalachian Mountains, runaway slaves made contact with whites, resulting in culture clash. By this time, banjos in the hands of runaway slaves was very common.
By 1800, at least one white Appalachian had learned to make banjo strings out of deer gut. Surprisingly, this rough backwoodsman, known to his neighbors as Old Leatherstocking, was said to value his banjo as much as he did his food and clothing.
This is one of the many examples of culture clash, because Old Leatherstocking had probably been taught by a runaway slave on the steps of making such things. And as the years go on, you will see that more white people will adopt the making process of the banjo, and just the banjo in general.
Well, by the mid-19th century, the 1850s, the banjo was, along with the fiddle, the most popular folk instrument in America. This instrument here is a replica of one of the first factory-made banjos, a William Boucher of Baltimore, Maryland. He was a drum maker. By this time, we have a combination of European ideas and African ideas. The African parts of this banjo being the stretched animal skin and the high drone string on top. And then some of the European elements, some nice fiddle tuning pegs, a decorative neck. These curly cues serve as position markers, and some metal on the banjo. The playing style that was popular in the mid-19th century was called the stroke style. Stroke style is also owes a lot to, when we think of clawhammer or frailing banjo today, it's the same playing technique. Moving down across the string with the index finger and then catching other notes with your thumb. The sound of minstrel banjo, though, is quite a bit different than clawhammer. We know what this music sounded like because the banjo was so popular in these years that instructional manuals were published that had a bunch of pieces in them. And I'm going to play you a piece right now. One is called the Whoop Jamboree from 1854 in style.
As you can see, this playing style is very close to how the man previously was playing the akonting. The only difference being that all of the finger on this man's right hand are closed instead of only the striking finger being closed. But it is not clawhammer style because it doesn't have that quintessential boom chicka boom train rhythm. example of the clawhammer style that became more prevalent towards the 1870s. There's a clear rhythm and the boom chicka feel is there, but there's a little bit of a gray area when defining the difference between stroke style and clawhammer. The big difference between the two is that in clawhammer the downstroke is always on the downbeats. I'll play you a song real quick that can demonstrate that as well. So you can hear how the downstroke is always on the downbeats and the thumb plucking up is always on the upbeats. Now I'm going to demonstrate that by counting it out. This is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and so it's always on that downbeat. Now in stroke style, the thumb can take on the downbeat too. Big players of the stroke style were Irish immigrants like indentured servants who learned the banjo, because a lot of those Irish jigs are in 3/4, right? So they would have to be creative, because like if you're playing an Irish jig, you're not trying to go like that's so much work. So they would alternate. They would do 1 2 1 1 2 1 and then hammer else pull off. So I'll play something real quick for you. So you can kind of hear how the thumb takes on some of those downbeats in that stroke style piece. There are 2 more early styles that I will briefly cover due to time constraints, or attempt to briefly cover. The first style is upstroke. It's not quite clear when it was invented, but it was popularized by folk musicians such as like Pete Seeger. It is more efficient than clawhammer, but it's also a double-edged sword because it's less precise. So I'll play something in clawhammer really quick, and I'll play it in upstroke. So. That's clawhammer. Now if I play an upstroke, it's not my main style, so give me a break. But also, you can kind of see how it's more efficient. The boom chicka boom of clawhammer is like this: boom chicka boom. Now if it's upstroke, let's see a better angle. It's boom chicka boom. So you can see how it's more efficient. But clawhammer can play things like this. Something like that, you know, but you can't do that on upstroke because you only can really play 3 out of 4 beats.
Home Sweet Home with Variations by Frank B. Converse.
The second style I want to introduce was first introduced in literature by a man named Frank B. Converse in 1865. It was likely it was around before then because books often codify things that have been around for a while. Guitar style was made to make the banjo appear more sophisticated and genteel so that it would appeal to the Victorian era high-class people. When you think of how the banjo is played today, you're probably thinking of the Scruggs style, which is the grandson of this guitar style.
There's a real old-timer, Cumberland Gap, with Earl Scruggs and Lester Flatt.
The Scruggs style of banjo was invented by Earl Scruggs in the mid-1930s. He took the guitar style, put some metal finger picks on 3 of his fingers, his thumb, index, and middle finger, and got to pick it. He used the fact that there were 3 fingers plucking, 4 beats per measure in most songs, and 5 strings on the banjo to create some really cool syncopation and rhythms. This is where bluegrass music really took off in popularity. There has been pretty much no stylistic or physical evolution of the banjo ever since. the banjo more sophisticated. Please! Guitar style was made to make the... Oh my gosh, dude, can I speak English? English, dude, please. It's literally, the class is called English. The second style is guitar style, which was in... Bro, oh my gosh. English. Means to strike. It is very similar to the clawhammer. Oh, I was doing so good. It was made to make the banjo appear more... Oh, I was doing so good. Oh my gosh. Why? Oh, introduced first by a man named, oh, dude, holy English, dude, please. Around the 1880s is when frets started to appear. Oh jeez. Oh yeah. A runaway slave on the making of stuff. Jeez. Guitar style was made to banjo. This is just terrible. This is like this is just all bloopers. This is all bloopers is what this is.